What's going on, everybody? It's Moonshine, the Hillbilly Hellraiser. How you doing? Welcome back to another Metal Meathead Media Blitz, your one and only source for pro wrestling, heavy metal, misinformation, pontificating, hyperbolic bloviating, irrational critique, all sorts of fun commentary of all stripes. Yeah, I hope everyone's having a good one. I'm doing all right. It's the end of a 3-day weekend for me. I got an extra day off of work. I got to utilize some PTO so I could go see Obituary, which is very cool. They're celebrating the 35th year anniversary of Cause of Death coming out. So it's a very cool show. They had Castrator and a couple of Castrator, Intoxicated, and a couple of local bands open for them. So a very fun show, very cool. I'll talk about that at a later time. Yeah, but it's back to working a little bit, so I figured I would bang out a little news clip thing. Got my elixir here. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot that happened this week as far as news and noteworthy stuff. Barry from that Go Metal show, he and Tone and Rich, they covered a couple things. Michael Sweet from Striper got diagnosed with cancer. Chris Garza from Suicide Silence is taking a break from the band. Those were a couple things that were kind of noteworthy. But as far as for me, stuff that kind of interested me, a lot of it was tour-related stuff. So anyhow, let's get into it. So first of all, and I had actually mentioned this in a comment on one of my videos to our buddy GoatDB666, I want to say is his handle on the YouTube. Let me tell you real quick because I'm gonna look as I'm doing this. Yeah, let's see, because anyone who's kind enough to comment on my videos, I'll at the very least give them a proper shout out. Yeah, Goat666DB is his handle on the YouTube. He's a very, very cool dude. Comments quite a bit on my stuff. But anyhow, we got talking about that. I was mentioning I was going to talk about this. So as far as tours that are coming up that are kind of interesting, first off, we got Amon Amarth and Death Clock announced a spring 2026 tour, and they've got Castle Rat to open for them. If you're familiar, Amon Amarth, very popular Swedish death metal act. Death Clock, that is the brainchild of Brendan Small, he's an animator, artist, he's a musician. He created Metalocalypse that was on Adult Swim on the Cartoon Network for the longest time. He also had another show before that called Home Movies. That's where I think he got his start. He also has another band, excuse me, called Galacticus or Galacticon, something like that, which is interesting. It's kind of a space themed, kind of similar to the Metalocalypse theme. But Death Clock is it's the band from the show, the cartoon band. There's a whole lore behind them, and somehow they're involved with taking over the earth or something or other. I haven't watched in a long, long time, but it was very funny, very gory, ridiculous with the cartoon violence, but it was a fun show. I enjoyed it. Had a couple of really cool characters like Dr. Roxo, who I think was based off of David Lee Roth. Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown, out to cocaine. And then he's getting the crap kicked out of him by the manager's got all the flunkies kicking the crap out of him outside, putting the boots to him medium style. I love using that quote. But anyhow, yeah, he's recruited Gene Hoglan on drums, Pete Griffin, who save your Family Guy jokes, and Nilly Brosh, who apparently plays with Danny Elfman, which is interesting. I mean, Danny Elfman's a well-known musician from Oingo Boingo, and then he does pretty much all the Tim Burton soundtrack stuff. He scores every Tim Burton film and tons of other stuff. So I'm sure anyone who's familiar with Tim Burton movies is familiar with Danny Elfman. So that's kind of interesting. And then, yeah, and then they got Castle Rat opening for them, which I thought was kind of interesting. Just because, speaking of, I mentioned Goat 666 because he had said something about them being industry plants, and I said, well, they're certainly getting a push right now because they're about to go out on a big tour with Amon Amarth and Death Clock. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if they're plants. I think the singer Riley, I think her one of her parents, her dad maybe, was in the music industry either as an artist or something or other. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. Don't know how much tickets are. I don't. Let's go back and see. Oh, I already took it off the stage here, but I don't see anything. They're going to be doing Welcome to Rockville, and beyond that, some dates in Texas, Missouri, Maryland. They're going to be in Brooklyn, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So yeah, go if you're interested, go check it out and go look it up. And if you want, go check out Amon Amarth, Death Clock, and Castle Rat. I mean, it should be an interesting little show going on. So the next tour announcement that came up was Cradle of Filth announced a tour that they're going to be doing with Suffocation, Ghost Bath, who I am not familiar with, and Cultist Black, who I'm also not familiar with. Maybe someone can educate me on that. You can see it's a small tour, a lot of Texas shows. Going to be in OKC, be at Welcome to Rockville again. It seems where everybody, if they're doing any Florida stuff, that's where they're going. And yeah, Pennsylvania, they're going to be in Pittsburgh, Columbus, Chicago, Minneapolis. Yeah, small tour. Should be interesting. I like Cradle of Filth. I wouldn't mind seeing them live. I know pretty much at this point it's just Danny, but at the same time, very, very good band. Really enjoyed the latest album. Enjoy a lot of their older stuff. So, and I'm sure whoever's playing with him, it's going to be a good show. What I did find kind of interesting was something that he said here, because I know he's been kind of hush-hush about the lawsuit that he's got going on with him and his management team. But this was something that I found was interesting that he had said is this right here was people leave the band because it's just a lot of commitment, a lot of hard work, a lot of traveling, a lot of mental disrepair. As in the case of our previous guitarist, people leave to start families and find that the lifestyle is a bit too hectic, or they just think they can do it better or just drift apart. They said it's very important to be a family when you join our band. And as a musician joining Cradle, well, any band, I guess nowadays, you have to wear many hats. So it's not just being a pretty face. In Cradle of Filth, you have to write, contribute toward the album. That happened on the latest record. Everybody contributed to its creation. And then you've got to do other things. This is the part that I find interesting because I wonder if maybe this is something that they're angling towards in the lawsuit that they're engaging in with the other band members, is that you've got to speak to people, meet and greets, videos. There's a lot of different things you have to actually get rather good at, or at least deal with. So I wonder if he's going to suggest that a lot of the people in the past who are now suing him just couldn't hack it, as far as like maybe they thought they would just, they'd be on a tour bus and go on stage and that's all they'd have to do, and didn't want to do all the PR and the meet and greets and stuff like that. I don't know. Who's to say? But I thought that was kind of interesting. But Cradle of Filth should be a good time. Suffocation's always a good time. I know some people kind of bristle at the idea of Ricky being the vocalist for the band, but they're fun. I enjoy seeing them every time I go see them. So yeah, if they're in your area and you're interested, go check out Cradle of Filth, Suffocation, Ghost Bath, Cultist Black. I guess I'll look those bands up and see how they sound. And then finally, in final tour news and notes here. I mean, I already kind of half-assed mentioned this, but yeah, it's official. Clutch and COC are going out on tour. April and May of 2026. As far as for me, any Florida dates, excuse me, Pensacola, Florida is the only one they're doing. And I saw the ticket prices on that and they were kind of outrageous. So I don't know about that one. Actually, no, I'm lying to you. See the misinformation thing. I saw tickets for Rochester, New York, because I got some buddies and I think they wouldn't mind going to see that. But that's going through Ticketmaster. And the prices on that were insane, just ridiculous the way Ticketmaster fleeces people. Pensacola wasn't too bad. So I guess maybe based on the carrier, it determines whether they're going to rake you over the coals to go see a band. But going through Ticketmaster is such a deep donging that it just makes you not even, it's just, you don't even want to go. You don't even want to go see bands with the prices that some of these assholes charge. And then they have no shame in doing it. And, oh, service fees and this and that. It's like, come on, blow it out your ass. Come on now. You're just getting greedy. You're trying to monopolize the entire thing. You're pretty much making it to where nobody else can compete with you as far as that goes, where people can't go to see big bands unless they pay outrageous sums of money to go see them. And let's not forget the whole thing they did back in 2020 where they were obligating people to have certain things that they ended up eventually disregarding. But let's not forget that Ticketmaster tried doing that with people, that you had to provide certain medical information to get into a show of theirs. It's like, screw you. But yeah, so that's what's going on there. But yeah, Clutch, COC, both fantastic bands. Clutch is, we're going to talk about, I do that again. I do that way too much. But Clutch is actually, they are in the process, and I'm going to share that. But COC's got a new album coming out. They're very excited about that. And Clutch is apparently, finally, they're going to begin recording the new album in early 2026. Neil talked about they did pre-production and writing session in January, which I think he's talking about January 2025, but then they've been out on tour for the most part and saying how the great thing about being on their own label is that they can take their time to do anything. And that seems to be what they're going to do. He was asked if any of the new material sounds good, quote unquote. And he said, every year it gets harder and harder to come up with stuff because you already have these existing records. But yeah, we know that as an album, it'll be all right, which is very cool to hear. They've been writing new music on and off between all the touring that they're doing. They've been doing a lot of touring, most of which I've personally missed because it's not fallen on days that I'm available to go see it, which kind of sucks ass, but it is what it is. So hopefully get to see them this time. Getting to see them with COC would be a killer thing to do. Getting to see them on the new album tour would be even better. But yeah, it's official that a new album should be coming out this year. So I'm excited for that. Definitely cool stuff. And then what else do we got going on? Let's get into some more, let's get into some posery kind of stuff. What do you say? So with all these people going on tour, there's one band that is completing their final tour, and most of the people here will probably say good riddance to it, but I figured I would share anyway, just because it was interesting. So apparently Winger is retiring. Rod Morgenstein, the drummer, he said that the gist of this article is that Kip is more worried about not being able to hit the notes anymore. And I guess occasionally he feels like he doesn't. So they're just deciding to hang it up. But I think a lot of it, reading further down into the article, apparently it is I'm trying to find it. I'm pretty sure it was this article where he was talking about, yeah, Reb Beach. They talked to Reb Beach, and he was talking about that, how he was in this part of the article. He was talking about how Kip Winger is apparently getting more and more into classical music and doing that. Uh, he's finally broken into the classical world. He was nominated for a Grammy a few years ago, and the Nashville Symphony Orchestra is performing his piece that he wrote for them, and that's what excites him. He doesn't need the money. And then Reb says, I could use the money. He doesn't need the money, so it's his time to quit now. And it's too bad because you think we get another singer, but no, and I mean, honestly, you can. Whether you love, hate, or don't give a crap about Winger, you can't have Winger without Kip Winger in the band. I mean, it's his band. They are a fantastic band, which is why I bring them up. Very, very, very good players. I think a guy who I used to work with for the longest time, he was a drummer, and he was very high on Rod Morgenstein. I think Rod is he was either a teacher at Berkeley or another, maybe even on the East Coast. He was in one of those real highfalutin, prestigious music schools where he was a music teacher there. So he was always very, very high on him and their playing, and always hated the fact that Metallica was throwing darts at a dartboard with Kip Winger on the dartboard. But it is what it is. They were just taking the piss and having fun with it. No harm, no foul. But yeah, so they're apparently retiring, and I know most people here won't really give a crap about that, but I figured I would share it nonetheless. And then moving to the next one, I thought this one was kind of interesting. So apparently a new band is forming, and you got Brian Wheat and Tommy Scioscia, both of Tesla. Tommy's no longer in Tesla. He hasn't been for a while, but they're teaming up with Chris Holmes, and they're forming a new band. It's called Terminal. And apparently they are getting the original singer of the rock band Saliva, Josie Scott, to do the vocals on it. So that should be kind of interesting. I'm not going to get too deeply into it because it's a very, very long article. As you can see, it's a whole it was a whole thing. They even get talking to Tommy about leaving Tesla, or Eddie Trunk did apparently. But yeah, that should be an interesting little project going on. I thought that I like Tesla, I like Wasp, I like Chris Holmes, I like all the aforementioned players. Not so sure about Josie Scott. I'm not a huge Saliva fan, but I don't really listen to a lot of radio rock stuff. But it ought to be interesting. If I remember correctly, I think that's the band that does the Click Click Boom song that you hear on the radio all the time and in movies, and everybody who every kind of normie ass person who thinks they're a rocker is out there singing that and thinking they're hard and tough and they're throwing up the horns and all that sort of stuff. But it's really just, lame mainstream garbage. But, you have fun with that. I'm not really a fan, but it will be interesting to hear how the band forms and comes together. Don't know who they have playing drums on it. I don't think that was announced quite yet, but it should be interesting. But based on all the people involved, I'm sure they're going to get somebody pretty good to do it. And then finally, as far as news goes, you won't believe it, and this is related to a story that I covered last week. Gene Simmons humbly apologizes for comments about Ace Frehley's death. I was wrong for using the words I used. So let's hear what he had to say about Ace. Basically, what happened is Gene Simmons he's been on a media, talk about media blitzes. He's been on a media blitz himself. He's been up in front of Congress testifying. He was at the Kennedy Center getting honored by the president. He's in the New York Post trashing Ace Frehley and saying how he thought that how everybody's trying to get him clean and sober, and he wouldn't listen, and he was one of the main ones who was doing it, or he was one of the people who was doing it, and he didn't think that it was as simple as him just falling and knocking his head that would kill him, even though, I mean, the guy was in his 70s, so a strong jolt to the head and a brain bleed or anything like that is gonna kill a guy like that. So anyhow, so he died of blunt trauma injuries to his head due to a fall. It was ruled an accident. He had multiple contusions, bone fractures to the back of his skull, hemorrhages, a subdural hematoma, additional bruises on his hip, thigh, and abdomen, which would suggest the report also noted that he suffered a stroke. So, I mean, if he would have survived, it would have been a miracle if he'd have survived all that. But this is what Gene had to say after his asinine comments. So let's do the Gene voice. On reflection, I was wrong for using the words I used. My hand to God. I humbly apologize. My hand to God. I didn't intend to hurt Ace or his legacy, but upon rereading my words, I see how it hurt everyone. Again, I apologize. I've always loved Ace. Always. I think Gene loves the sound of his own voice more than anything. And I think he probably saw the backlash, or somebody saw the backlash related to his comments, and just being I joke about being a bloviating jackass, but he is one of the highest order. I mean, if you were trying to be one, he would be like the Jedi master that you'd want to learn from, because he is just, he doesn't stop. Although I will give him credit. He was out at some event with his wife, with Shannon Tweed, and a reporter asked him if something about I think it was after the Kennedy Center thing, and they were asking him what he thought of Donald Trump's policies and all this, that, and the other thing. And he went on this whole tirade. He kind of tore the guy apart and told him that, there used to be a day and time and place in this country where voting meant you would go behind a curtain and you would vote your conscience anonymously, and you didn't talk about it. Nowadays, everybody wants to know what everybody thinks about everything. And like the first thing he said was, why do you care? Why do you care? Why do you care who I vote for? Does it matter? And he was basically, I think, for as much of a bloviating ass as he is, I do respect the fact that not that my respect matters to a guy like that, but the fact that he was basically saying that we're celebrities. It doesn't matter what we think. You just go, you vote for who you want and what you want for. You don't have to put it on blast all the time, and everybody doesn't need to know. And the world doesn't need to be guided by the opinions of celebrities, because most of them, as dumb as most of us are, they're as dumb as we are. They're us. They just got lucky, or they caught a break, or they knew somebody, or whatever the case is. So they're not any smarter than anybody else. It's just so I do appreciate that. I forget what channel or event it was, but it was cool watching him do that. And then he kind of like took a little dig at them, and because it was two guys that were the reporters, and he said something to the effect of, how long have you two been together? And I don't think they realized the shot he was taking at them. He thought, oh, we're just a team, like a media team. No, I think he was saying that you are partners. But nonetheless, I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, and that's pretty much that as far as the news. And then beyond that, a couple new releases that came out this week. We got the final song by Eric Wagner, Eulogy, just came out. It's really good. It's a limited, I think it's a 7-inch that's limited to 100, if I'm not mistaken. It was put out by Ripple Music, and yeah, it was good. I ordered it. A huge Trouble fan. I love Trouble. And you'll have to forgive me for a second. I'm gonna type something real quick, because I did want to just mention one pro wrestling thing. Here we'll go to one of the evil empires to talk about it. But yeah, Trouble is a fantastic band. Eric Wagner is such a great vocalist. He died a couple years ago due to complications from the Rona. Um, and this is the last song that he ever recorded. Yeah, and it sounded great. It was a little more, I would say, a little more somber and a lot. It's not a rocker. It's a very somber, very emotional kind of song. Very kind of low key and understated. It's definitely not anything that it sounds more along the lines of like the Beatles-esque type stuff that he would have been into. And then there's also there's a cover of a Trouble song on there on the second side. So definitely looking forward to having that. As a fan of Trouble, I had to get it. Just as far as collecting their stuff is definitely something that I wanted to have in my collection. His solo album is fantastic. But yeah, so that came out, and then our boys Abruxum, they came out with something new this week. It was what's the name of it? I gotta. It's dun, dun, dun. Sorry, gang. I wasn't prepared for that, and I think I do have one. while we're sitting here, while I'm fiddling about on the computer, you want to talk about more Dogma stuff or more Vitriol stuff? No, I didn't think so. I think everybody should be tired at this point of hearing about the magical singing stripper nuns and the guy who bilked people out of 10 G's to travel across country because his band thought he was a douche and left him on the side of a road. There you go. There's the analysis of there's your final updates on Vitriol and Dogma. But it is called Vomiting Dental Gore. It's out independently. It looks like it's only out digitally. I tried to look up where it would be, but I didn't see it on Bandcamp. But maybe I got to look a little bit closer, or maybe I didn't spell it correctly. But yeah, those, as far as releases that came out, those are the only two that really kind of stood out to me as far as stuff that'd be interesting. And then the final thing I have, it's a pro wrestling thing, but it's pretty big news in the world of pro wrestling. But this was the big news of the day in the wrestling world, was that John Cena had his final match Saturday night at Saturday night's main event. We don't need to see Court Bauer. Literally don't need to see him. And sorry, I had to get things set up here. A lot of people were pissed about this. Lots of people were pissed. Many people. They told me why did they have John Cena smiling while he tapped out? I don't understand it. You don't put over the finish that way. Lots of people were unhappy with Triple H, with Hunter Paul Levesque. Lots of people unhappy with him. But anyhow, my dorky impersonations. But it was basically the crux of it was that he had a match with a guy named Gunther, who's one of their top guys right now. Gunther had him in a rear naked choke, sleeper hold move. And while John Cena was tapping out, he was smiling the whole time, which in some respects kind of diminishes the finish of the match. And then Triple H, his wife, Stephanie McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, who's one of the key figures backstage as far as one of the head writers, a bunch of their main stars, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes. Who else came out? They said a bunch. The Undertaker was out there. A bunch of people came out to wish him well and see him off. And he left his stuff in the ring, which is tradition in the business that you do. You leave your boots and stuff in the ring when you're going to finally hang them up. And as Hunter was out there, the crowd started chanting "F you, Hunter," because everybody was pissed about the finish. They were pissed about the way. I think a lot of people are they've been mad about the way this whole retirement tour has been going, and they blame him because he's the head writer. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But beyond that, that's pretty much as far as that goes. I didn't watch the match, so I couldn't tell you how good or bad the match itself was. And yeah, other than that, that's pretty much what I got going on as far as news and notes and things of that nature. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you for joining me and my Metal Meathead Media Blitz. I hope you found some stuff interesting, informative, entertaining. And yeah, I got this close to a half hour, so that's pretty cool. I'm getting the time down a little bit, a little less ranting and babbling on this one. But yeah, man, as far as anything else going on, just check back. This is Dan from Moonshine Talking, saying stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everyone have a good one. Take it easy, and I will catch you on the next video. Later.